Well, less than a week after the United Nations Security Council unanimously voted to impose new sanctions on North Korea, the U.S. Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control sanctioned 2 individuals today as the Hermit Kingdom continues to create weapons of mass destruction. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said that the, quote, Treasury is targeting leaders of North Korea's ballistic missile programs as part of our maximum pressure campaign to isolate the DPRK and achieve a fully denuclearized Korean peninsula, end quote. All right, well, over the weekend, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un called the latest UN sanctions an act of war. Are we already headed for a complicated and confrontational 2018 with North Korea? Let's bring in right now former Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chief Counsel and National Security Institute founder, Jamil Jaffer. Jamil, it's great to have you on this.
Thanks for having me, Cheryl.
You know, this relationship with North Korea gets more and more complicated. Did these sanctions, though, in your opinion, go far enough to finally get Kim Jong-un to come to the table?
Well, look, these are certainly the strongest sanctions we've seen out of the UN at all, but they're not as strong as they could be. There's more we can do. The U.S. was pressing for more sanctions. The international community really needs to step up and do more here.
All right, so let's talk in particular about some of the sanctions that, I mean, look, these sanctions, the UN sanctions anyway, reduce oil exports to North Korea, authorize seizure of ships and ports. You would have thought that would have got him a little concerned. Require North Korean workers abroad to return home after 2 years. Now, these are sanctions. Doesn't mean that they're going to be, followed through on, obviously. Right. But this isn't the termination of oil exports in completion. And many have said, here in this country, that's what you've got to do with North Korea. Cut off the oil, and you get North Korea, you get Kim Jong-un to start talking.
Exactly right.
And it's not, but you don't think that's going to happen, though?
Well, look, we haven't gotten the UN convinced of that yet. We've been trying hard to get that to happen, and we're going to try harder. Nikki Haley's doing a great job at the UN. President Trump is putting a lot of pressure on North Korea. We have to be prepared to go to war if need be, if we're going to get China, which is really the key to this whole thing, to put pressure on the North Koreans to let up on their program. China's at the heart of this, and we've got to put pressure on China. And at the end of the day, the UN's got to step up and do the right thing.
It's interesting because South Korea is predicting that the U.S. and North Korea will sit down to talks in 2018. Do you think that's even plausible?
Look, it's possible to sit down and talk, but we've been through this show with the North Koreans before. We talk and we talk and we talk, and we agree to give them relief, and they agree to do a little bit here and there, and then they run the tables on us. And, that's 20 years of a failed U.S. policy. At the end of the day, we got to stop talking and start doing. And the real crux of that is us putting pressure on China. There are 2 million North Koreans, ethnic North Koreans, sitting on the other side of the border in China. We've got to put pressure on them and on the Chinese government to do more. Right,
because the Chinese are fully enjoying the cheap labor that they're getting from North Korea, and they don't want to give that up. I mean, I think that's been made pretty clear. Let me move to what's happening with the United Nations on a different side, and that's U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley. Last week, she announced $285 million cut to the operating budget for 2018-2019 at the UN. I had a former ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, on Mornings with Maria today, and here's what he told me about that. I want you to listen to this.
Well, I think the defunding certainly is a move in the right direction. I think what Ambassador Haley was presaging, though, in terms of the future, is the direction the Trump administration is going to go in.
So he said that the defunding was a great idea and that we should continue on this path at the UN. Do you agree?
Well, look, there's a lot of bloat at the UN, and certainly the budgets need to be cut. We pay 22% of the UN's base budget, and that doesn't even include the huge amount that we pay, billions of dollars, in peacekeeping funds. So there's a lot of bloat in the UN. We got to cut back on it, and this is a good first step. More needs to be done.
It's interesting, too, because after we announced that we were going to move our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, you get this huge vote against us in the United Nations. Next thing you know, you've got no less than 10 countries now over the weekend, including Guatemala, that have come out and said they may also move their embassies to Jerusalem. Do you think that all of this stress around the issue of Israel is good for the United States in the UN, or do you think that this hurts us and how we work together with the members?
Well, look, we always knew that this move was going to be controversial. Congress has been pressing hard for this move for years. The president committed to doing this during the campaign. He's now made good on that promise. Whatever you think about that decision, we always knew it was going to cost us at the UN with, political votes. I think what's really interesting, though, is that while 9 countries supported us directly, there were another 55 or so countries that actually backed us by not voting on the resolution, including countries like Australia and Canada. And I think that's an interesting thing. I think not what a lot of people expected, not what a lot of people predicted.
Okay, prediction time then from you, Jamil, if you don't mind. First, let's talk about what's happening this year. Do you think that embassy will be moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem? Think it happens?
Well, look, I think that even the administration said it's going to take them a while to make the actual move, make the actual transfer. So I think they're going to play this thing out for a little while and see what happens. I think part of the goal here is to put more pressure on the peace process. Unclear whether they'll be successful, whether it'll be better or worse for the peace process, but I think that's at least the idea. And so move the embassy right now, probably not going to happen this year, I don't think.
Right. Well, there's a land issue in Jerusalem, to be fair, so I guess that was a tough question for you. But let me ask you about North Korea. As the South Koreans are predicting, do you think that the United States and North Korea can actually sit down and have discussions about where we're at? Because to have a nuclear-armed North Korea is not in the best interest of the world.
That's exactly right. And a nuclear-armed North Korea with weapons that can reach the United States is totally unacceptable for the United States. We will not accept it. We will be prepared to go to war. We may sit down and talk, but ultimately resolution of this matter depends on China. We've got to pressurize that situation and make them come to us and bring the North Koreans to the table and get a real deal if we're going to do a deal at all.
So much to discuss. Jamil Jaffer, well, we shall see. I've got you on a camera now. It's on the tape, so we'll see. We'll have you back in a year and see where we're at.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Jamil Jaffer, thank you very much.